today's Tea and Tome Cozy Reading Chat, I am brewing this Bird and Blend Black Forest tea. So it's Black Forest Gateau black tea with a cherry on top, and it is delicious. Let's go. Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to my channel if you've been with me before, and welcome if you are brand new and happen to have stumbled across this video in the YouTube algorithm. My name is Melanie Steele and I am the author of 3 non-fiction books all about cozy living, and I'm currently writing my first novel, which is a cozy fantasy. Today's video I have entitled Tea and Tome. Basically, this is just going to be a very cozy reading chat between us, and I'm going to be sharing what I've read lately, which, spoiler alert, is not a lot because I have been working so hard on the first draft of my book, and also sharing what I have been writing, the struggles I've been going through, the race to try and get my first draft finished so that I can have this week currently to have a break from it and to focus on doing some other things like YouTube. So if you have not already, please go get yourself a lovely cup of tea, coffee, or your preferred beverage of choice before we settle into Tea and Tome. So the first book that I want to talk about is a fiction book that I purchased from Barter Books, which is one of the country's largest secondhand bookshops up in Northumberland when we were there for our trip. I will pop a link to that vlog up there if you're interested in seeing it. And it is this book by Dilly Court called The Lucky Penny, and it is part of her saga series called The Rockwood Chronicles. Now, I'm not a huge reader of historical fiction. Typically I only read things by Dilly Court because she writes essentially about plucky Victorian heroines, rags to riches kind of stories that are set in London, and I just enjoy that. That is just a very small segment of historical fiction that I do tend to enjoy. I have read all the books that precede this in the Rockwood Chronicles series, and that leaves me with, I think, 1 still to read. My main motivation for picking this up was because, well, I wanted a book from Barter Books. It's a very cool bookshop, it's really big, and as the name suggests, you can exchange books for credit, but given we were just there on a holiday, that wasn't what I wanted to do. I just wanted to go in and buy a book with cash or card as it happened to be, and I picked up this one because I like the series, but also because they put a cool stamp in there that I just wanted to have a little souvenir of. That Black Forest tea, so good. If you like anything Black Forest, if you're a fan of chocolate and or cherry, this is the This is a blend that you should definitely check out. Okay, so I will read you the blurb from the back. Flora is forever grateful for the day the Stewart family rescued her from the life of poverty on London streets. Adopted as one of their own, she shed her rags and was finally given a place to call home. When a twist of fate calls her back to the cobbles, Flora's new life is torn apart. This is an interesting one. Essentially, Flora is, as the blurb suggests, rescued from a life on the streets into a rich family. The problem with that is that in Victorian London, the class system was very specific. If you were not born into money, that was it. You could not climb the social ladder no matter how much you tried. So even though Flora has been raised by this very wealthy family, this very nice house, to be a companion, as they would have called it, for their daughter Arabella, she's never quite one of them. So she gets all the nice clothes. She goes to all these very fancy functions with Arabella. So she kind of has the life, but she also doesn't. Because as Arabella comes of age, i.e. 18, because this is Victorian London, and she's exploring her prospects for getting married, Flora realises that essentially she doesn't really fit in and she's not really going to have a place, because no rich man is going to court her because she is a nobody, essentially. But also she's been so used to growing up in this very nice life that marrying someone who is not in this kind of social class is also a bit problematic, as we see in the book, when she kind of enters into a sort of relationship with the gardener, but then realizes that she doesn't want to spend her days living in a tiny cottage on the country estate with his in-laws, because that's just not how she was raised. And of course, throughout the book, we start to learn more about where Flora actually comes from. And eventually we kind of solve the mystery of the family she was born into. And of course, it all turns out well. And it's a happy ending, as much as one could have a happy ending in Victorian England. But yeah, if you're after something that kind of has plucky heroines and is set in Victorian England, I always recommend Dilly Court's books. And they always have happy endings, and I don't know, I just find them quite fun to read. But that is just me. Need some tea. Second book that I have been reading lately is this one. It is Kristen Butler's The Comfort Zone. This I have really enjoyed reading, and let me tell you why. Whenever you hear the phrase the comfort zone, it's always in a kind of negative fashion, isn't it? Someone says, if you want to achieve X, Y, Z, you have to break out of your comfort zone. Nothing good ever came from staying in your comfort zone. If you're not pushing the boundaries, you're not growing, you're not being productive, you're not going to achieve anything, etc., etc., etc. What I like about this book is that Kristen Butler spins that on its head and says, actually, we do our best growth, our best productivity, our best selves by being in our comfort zone. Now, of course, there is a slight caveat to this, in that your comfort zone is not necessarily what you think it is. Let me show you. So, Butler highlights the three zones: the complacent zone, the survival zone, and the comfort zone. And what she asserts is the complacent zone is often what people think of when they are thinking of the comfort zone, but that is not the zone that you want to be in, and nor is the survival zone. Even though they might call themselves content, those who live in this zone are far from feeling truly comfortable. It's common for those who primarily live in the complacent zone to claim that they feel satisfied even though they feel stuck where they are and are unable to take action due to some level of fear. The survival zone. If you're an overachiever and live in the habit of pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, chances are you spend most of your time in the survival zone. High effort is the driving force of this zone. It is also the zone of endless comparison and competition, and as such, it can foster envy, judgment of others, and resentment. Butler is very keen to emphasize there's nothing wrong with being in either of those zones, and in fact most of us will at some point in our lives be in either the complacent or the survival zone, because very few of us get to stay in our comfort zone long term. You know, things happen that cause us to move into these different zones, and that she merely provides these descriptions and a quiz to help you decide which zone you're currently in, and thus how to work toward the comfort zone. So, what is this comfort zone? Think of your comfort zone as the home where you can feel safe, free to express yourself fully without fear of judgment. This zone encompasses everything that allows you to feel uplifted and good about yourself and your life. It is filled with things that feel comfortable and natural. It is a very personalised space where you can stay and remain strong in your power during stressful times of outside threats. And some of the words that she would choose to associate with the comfort zone, things like intuition, ease, happiness, health, passion. Essentially, being in the comfort zone is that kind of space that we feel when we are in the flow. I'm pretty sure all of us have experienced what it's like to have that really good feeling of being in the flow. If you're a writer, maybe it's just you get to this point in the story and everything's coming together. You know what your character is doing, you know what the scene is meant to do, you know the environment, the motivations. It just feels like everything is coming and you know exactly what it is you're creating. You don't want anyone to interrupt you. You're just there frantically typing because this is all so perfect in your mind and you just want to get it out there because you are filled with such joy and happiness. If you work in other professions, it absolutely happens to you as well. Maybe if you've been working on something particularly difficult at work and then the solution kind of strikes and then you're like, oh yes, I get this now. And you're kind of in the zone and you're like, it feels really good to be in the zone of this kind of ease and creativity. That is the comfort zone. It is the overlap between what you're good at, what you enjoy doing. That is where we need to be. So it is not the complacent zone as most people would think of it. It is the intersection between what you're good at, what brings you joy, and what keeps you in this state of flow. And I really enjoyed reading this. I haven't quite finished. There's an exercise here that I need to do before I can move on. And there are exercises in here as well, which is really good, where she asks you quite poignant questions and it kind of helps you to think through everything to help decide what zone you're in. I was still actually in the comfort zone when I did this quiz, and I would still consider myself there today, but it was the lower end, so I wanted to keep reading to see what else I could do to get more of that comfort zone feeling, because it is amazing when we get to feel that way. So definitely one to get a notebook and pen out for as well. Essentially, if you're feeling burned out, if you're sick of these productivity bros, as I call them, saying work harder, work faster, get up earlier, more, which I always actually think of as a very masculine way of doing things. It's not a very feminine way of doing things. And this kind of very masculine energy that is associated with that kind of productivity is just not for me personally. This book with the comfort zone offers a much more soft and feminine type of approach to our energy, getting things done by being in the flow rather than this constant push that you can feel when you are kind of doing this productivity in the very bro sense of the word. So if you're someone who feels like maybe they're not as productive as they could be, but all of this kind of nonsense online is not for you, and you want to embrace that feeling of being in the flow, and that's how you want to feel more of the time, absolutely recommend this one by Kristen Butler. I got this used like new for about £5 off Amazon, so definitely worth checking out if there are any used copies on there as well. But absolutely recommend as a different approach to productivity that is more about being in a gentle, soft place. I'm very glad I have this tea actually. All this talking is, yeah, need this tea. I actually got this tea on our trip to Northumberland, but I didn't actually include it in the vlog. I'm just kind of remembering now. So I got this one. My husband got the specific Newcastle blend. Each Bird and Blend tea shop across the country has a specific blend pertaining to the area that it's in. So for example, the Oxford Bird and Blend shop has a blend called the Oxford Comma, because of course it does. Oxford University, all the literature, that's exactly what you would expect. The Newcastle blend, and the name of it has escaped me, is a kind of slightly smoky and peppery blend, so not something I would ordinarily try. I haven't actually tried it yet. I probably should, because I might like it, but I am more of a kind of sweet blend for tea sort of person. But I should probably give the Newcastle blend a go, because you never know, might like it. That's basically all I've read lately. It's not very much, but as I said, you know, I've been focused on writing my book, and kind of once I've done that, a lot of my energy is drained, and I don't necessarily even feel like doing something as laid back as reading. And I'm also on a self-imposed ban for reading anything remotely fantasy until this book is much further down the line of being complete and edited, just so that no ideas from anything that I might read might sneak its way into the book that I'm reading, because that would not be good. And the majority of my shelves are fantasy, so it's been a little tricky, but I also have a fair amount of non-fiction to keep me occupied when I do feel like reading. I'm hoping to get some more reading done this week, because as I said, I'm taking the entire week off from looking at this book. The Friday just gone, I finished the first draft. Go me. I didn't actually think I would, because if you'd seen the previous vlog, essentially I was really flagging that week. I was only getting like a few hundred words done each day, if that. But on Friday, I felt a lot better. The days previous, I had been feeling really tired, just no energy. And as per the comfort zone book, I was not trying to force myself into doing anything, because that only generates, in my personal experience, terrible words, terrible prose. Just no, it's not worth it. But on the Friday I felt a lot better, and I managed to churn out a good few thousand words. And I got to a stage that I felt that there was enough of this first draft for me to call it done, and then to go back following week after this week and to look at redrafting, revising, etc. The first draft finished a little short of the word count that I had initially set, but this is fine because I'm the sort of person who underwrites. There are a lot of insert description here, more here, add to this type notes throughout my work. I don't tend to sit there and think for ages and ages about descriptions and things, unless I feel very inspired in the moment. A lot of the time I'm just wanting to get the, you know, ABC part of the story out, and I can worry about adding in all the lovely fanciful details later. So yeah, I'm not too concerned about the fact that it is shy of the word count, because I know 100% for a fact that you will be over that word count by the time I get round to putting in much more of the description, much more of how everything feels, getting in all those sights and sounds and all of that makes a book of any genre, any kind, feel very rich. I think one of the struggles I was really having was wanting to describe clothes. This might be an odd one for you, but I have been reading, I read a while back these books, hold on. The Once Upon a Broken Heart series by Stephanie Garber. Love this series. Haven't actually finished it. I've been holding off on the third book because of writing, and also I'm just not quite ready for it to end yet. Evangeline Fox, Jax, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. But I adore how Stephanie Garber describes the dresses that Evangeline wears, both in the start of the book and when she travels to the magnificent north. Every day is a ball gown day in this series. If you haven't read it, just everyone is just so fancy and everything is gorgeous. And I need to go back and not necessarily reread the whole book, but to find the scenes where she talks about this clothing, because I need to understand what it is she does to make these descriptions really stand out, because the feelings this evoked in me is what I want to evoke in my readers about all the kind of clothes that exist in the small town of Quartz Falls where my book is set, where the clothes are, you know, not just your ordinary t-shirt and jeans. They are altogether much more beautiful, refined and elegant. At the moment, the descriptions feel very flat. So I'm definitely going to be finding some of the descriptions from here and taking the time to really analyze what makes them work so that I can incorporate that. So yeah, the descriptions of all the clothing in my book needs to feel much more magical and elegant. But let's put this one back. So the other descriptions that I really want to work on improving into the next draft is the description of the town itself. Everything in Quartz Falls, as the name might suggest, is largely made of different types of crystal. Now, not everything, because some things being made of all crystal, like for example, people's houses, would be a little absurd. Can you imagine trying to build a house out of solid quartz? No. But there are touches of crystal everywhere, and I can kind of see it in my mind, and I have a dreamy Pinterest, which I will insert a little clip of here. So as you can see, everything is very pastel and shimmery and magical. And again, that's the kind of feeling that I'm trying to evoke. Again, it's not there yet, but this is fine. We are just on a first draft, so we have plenty of space to improve it. But it's working out the kind of finer details about which stones are in which spaces, and also going into more detail about the properties of stones, which I do have a book. The Crystal Apothecary by Gemma Petherbridge. This is a gorgeous little book. If you love crystals, get yourself a copy of this book. It is so, so pretty. Let me show you. There's just gorgeous, gorgeous kind of illustrations throughout this book, and it has all kind of different styles and what they mean. It's just, the photography in this book is lovely, and she goes into, in my opinion, just the right amount of detail about the meanings of all different stones, how you can use them in a kind of metaphysical sense. Even if you're not into that aspect of it, I still think this is a really gorgeous book to have, just so you can have a read of this information. But this book has been very useful to me in deciding on the stones that each of the characters have, because part of the story here is that each character is kind of given a stone as part of a special birthday, and that stone reflects upon them as a person and also what they are kind of meant to be achieving with their life and the kind of path that they are destined to go down. Not in an exact sense, because I don't believe in this whole there is one destiny for everybody kind of thing, but the stones lend themselves to that individual's strength and where their life might lead. So this has been very useful in deciding that. Time for tea. Almost gotten through all of this. It's a lot of thirsty work having to talk to camera. the other thing in my book that definitely needs a lot of work in the second draft is the romance subplot. When I started writing this book, I didn't really have any plans for a romance subplot at all. I wasn't against it, but just the story as I had it in my head didn't really include that to begin with. So when I started writing it, there was no, there was nothing planned to, factor in a romance subplot. And as I was kind of going along, I was like, actually, I feel, even though this book is very much focused on female friendship, and that is the kind of number one point of this book, I didn't want it to be romantasy. I didn't want it to be focused solely on a romantic relationship. That would have been detrimental to the whole plot and the characters' motivation, what it is they need to overcome. Female friendship has always been the driving factor of this story, but I felt a romantic subplot was necessary and would kind of lend itself to more character development. It will always be a subplot and it will always be secondary to the kind of main happenings of the story. But currently it's feeling a little flat. I think this is largely because I haven't really decided on the kind of trope that it's going to touch on, and kind of the tropes and things like that are largely what makes romance work, because people like to go in already knowing the kind of and having expectations of what is going to happen. For example, if you pick up a romance novel and it has grumpy sunshine listed as a trope, you know that one character is going to be grumpy and the other is going to be sunshine, and we know roughly how this is going to go. And people like this kind of foreshadowing. No, that's not the word. People like to know the kind of romance that they are signing up for. And currently my subplot is a bit all over the place. So I know, for example, I don't want enemies to lovers. Absolutely not. I've never really liked that trope, and I feel like that trope is everywhere right now. I'm done with it. I'm over it. I'm fed up with it. That is not the trope that I want. I have ordered a copy of Theodora Taylor's Universal Fantasy Romance Tropes, which is due to arrive today, and I'm going to read through that. I have her other book, the Seven Figure Fiction. I also have the workbook. I just really enjoy her work on Universal Fantasy. I think it's really useful and can be applied to all different genres of book. But I felt the romance one would be a really useful one to have for when I'm considering what to do with this romance subplot in the redrafting. So I think those are the main points with my writing that I need to focus on in the redraft, as well as the very obvious things of, spelling, grammar, etc. Those are the main points that need fixing. And I'm definitely excited to get into that, but I'm also happy to have a break from it, have a little bit of distance and focus on doing some other things, because I have been writing this book most days of the week, including weekends, for months. And it's just, I love this story. I really, really do, but I need this distance from it to come back to it to really do it justice. I think this is quite common amongst writers. Some people put their stories away for a long time. I've read people putting their stories away for a year. I don't have that kind of time. I want to get this up and out into the world so that I can then start writing on the sequel, because I do have currently 4 books planned for this world, assuming that book number 1 does okay, then yeah, we can definitely get on with writing the sequels to it. So yeah, I certainly do not want to wait a year to put this out. I would love to have this out by sort of autumn time this year. But as I've said in previous videos, it depends on so many factors. Absolutely no promises being made here today. So that's everything that I have been reading lately, and that is an update on my writing. I'm briefly going to share what I am currently reading, so maybe we can catch up on how I felt about these books in the next Tea and Tome video. So I just started this book yesterday. It is another fiction and another non-fiction. Let's start with the fiction. So Sarah Cannon's The Disappearance of Vanessa Shaw, Secrets Can Kill. Great tagline there from Sarah. I bought this, I think, a couple of months after it came out last year, and it's kind of just been sat there on my TBR for some time, but I wasn't quite in the mood for the kind of thriller-esque genre of this book. But seeing as I'm currently on my self-imposed fantasy ban, I thought perfect time to read this. I am a big Sarah Cannon fan. I follow her channels here on YouTube, both her channel for her books and the channel she does for authors and writing. I will put links below in case you are interested in either of those. I have read her young adult fantasy, paranormal books, the Shadow Demon saga. I've read about half of them, still have some more to go, but really enjoyed those. This is therefore a bit of a departure because it's not, as far as I know, a kind of fantasy book. It is YA, but it's not fantasy. I think it's a sort of whodunit thriller, but I could be completely wrong. But that's the vibe I'm getting right now. You know, this person is missing and we're trying to decide what happened to her. So yeah, I am digging into that and enjoying it so far. And my non-fiction book is the very exciting Self-Editing for Self-Publishers by Richard Bradburn. This was recommended in many indie author writing groups as a good resource for self-editing the book. As you can see, I am not very far through it, but I plan to read hopefully this whole thing this week, seeing as I don't have an awful lot else on, just so I can feel a bit more empowered and a bit more knowledgeable about the way to approach redrafting this book. I think he recommends a kind of 3-pass process. So on your first one, we're doing XYZ. Your second go through, we're doing ABC. I think that's the general gist of this book. Basically, it's just giving you a structure so that you're not sat there in front of your manuscript thinking, I don't know how to start, I don't know where to start, because that has absolutely happened to every indie author I can imagine. So going to read through that and then probably take lots of notes so that I feel more confident when next week rolls around and I'm ready to get stuck in there. So I think that is everything for this. I really hope you've enjoyed this teen tome. I would like to make it a regular series, particularly when I am reading more books. So we have some more books to talk about, and I think it'd be really fun to try different types of tea as well. If you're in the UK, Burn Blend, absolutely recommend. I will pop a link to them in the description. They have numerous shops across the UK, at least England. I apologise if it's not Wales or Scotland, but I know England definitely, they have various shops, so you can go in and kind of try different blends. But if there isn't one near you, because there aren't actually that many, you can order online, and there are some really good reviews for each of the blends, and they give very detailed descriptions of the kind of flavours. So in as far as you can, you'll know roughly what to expect, and they also put free samples in all your orders, so you might get to find a new favourite that way. So thank you very much for joining me. If you have enjoyed this video and you haven't already, I would love for you to hit the subscribe button and turn on all notifications about future videos. I do videos for writers and sharing my writing process, and of course videos for people who just want to follow my daily life and my vlogs. So whether you're a reader, writer, a bit of both, I have something for you. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.